the day Julian and I broke off our engagement. I awakened and realized I was the female lead in a tragic, angst-filled novel. I was clearly the #1 socialite of a city, yet I was written to kneel at his feet like a simp. After being abused in body and mind by him, I even forgave him. Everyone else envied how lucky I was. But now, I refuse to play this tragic heroine any longer. Chapter 1. Today is my birthday. Julian arrived late, with no gift prepared. I was wearing a plain white, floor-length gown. He dragged me into a corner by the staircase, and I stumbled. It turned out he had prepared another grand gift for me, calling off our engagement. Rejection and questioning rose to my lips. But suddenly my mind was flooded with memories. I pressed my lips tightly together. I was digesting something unreal, yet dreamlike and true. My life was nothing more than an absurd novel, standing on a pedestal, yet dragged into the dust by unwilling fate. For another girl. Julian humiliated and hurt me again and again. In the end, he realized the one he loved was me, and returned to my side. That alone was enough reason for me to slap him awake, and to slap myself awake, too. But Julian grabbed my wrist. There are people outside. Calm down. Yes, I should be calm. I couldn't lose my upbringing. But just because I'm a lady, a socialite, does that mean I deserve to be abandoned and still smile and say it's fine? Give me a reason. The reason for ending the engagement. I don't like you. What we have is just a sibling-like bond. Oh, the Julian family's upbringing is truly impressive. Young Master Julian kisses his own sister. Does he? Julian had never seen me this sharp-tongued. He froze slightly and released my wrist. We'll talk when you've calmed down. I let out a cold laugh, stepped away from the staircase corner in my heels, and walked out. Amid the applause of the crowd, I sat before the piano, alone in the only beam of light in the hall. I quietly played Amazing Grace, pressing the familiar black and white keys. A delayed pain bloomed in my heart. It hurt so much I was about to cry. Suddenly, a mechanical voice sounded in my head. Conquer the male lead Julian. Conquer the male supporting role Theodore. Doing so will change the novel's ending. I almost struck the wrong note. Wasn't the novel's ending supposed to be marrying Julian, with everyone saying how lucky I was? No, I would never accept that ending. Chapter 2. Theodore is Julian's sworn rival. Both of them study at a university. A city has 2 major private schools, a university and Violet Girls' Academy. Perhaps to make it easier for Julian and the innocent damsel Lisa to develop their romance. I had always studied at Violet, but now that both of my targets were at a university, I had to transfer. Father, I want to transfer to a university. Tell me what's going on. Julian brought up ending our engagement yesterday. I have 3 things to deal with at a university. First, find out why he wants to break it off and eliminate the cause. Second, see whether it can be salvaged. After all, this engagement concerns both families, and I don't wish to bring shame to you. Third, as a fallback plan, engagements are tools for mutual benefit. I'll find a more suitable match, for myself and for our family. My father finally looked up from his financial newspaper, a satisfied glint in his eyes as he raised an eyebrow. Not bad. In the novel, I repeatedly acted without thinking, earned his disgust, and became a marginal figure in the family. He would never allow his daughter, the future heir of the family, to be an idiot, and I never was. I was only forced into madness by the plot. When I transferred into a university, junior year, Class A, everyone applauded in welcome. Everyone except Julian and his desk mate, the novel's innocent damsel female side character, Lisa. Lisa's father died early. Her mother supported her by selling fruit. To promote itself, a university offers 5 special social admission slots each year, with full tuition waived. That was how Lisa got in. Julian admired her diligence, her kindness. He liked her clumsiness, her adorable carelessness, even her impertinence, helping her again and again. He lost his heart. The homeroom teacher told me to choose my own seat. I walked toward Julian. Lisa immediately lowered her head and began packing her things. Her thin shoulders trembled. So she knew he was my fiancé. I smiled gently. You have too many things. It's a hassle. Just stay here. It's fine. Lisa froze, looked up at me, her eyes reddening. And no, it's okay. I was going to. I sneered inwardly. On the surface, my smile only grew gentler. I lightly patted her shoulder. Don't be nervous. Just sit here. The seats in the back are quite spacious. My gaze swept toward the back row. A boy was leaning lazily against the wall, pen in hand, head down, focused on his work. Delicate features. Perfect. Sitting next to him would improve my mood. I sat down. He glanced sideways at me, raised an eyebrow in greeting, and went back to his work. As I was about to shove my bag into the desk drawer, I found it stuffed with love letters and gifts. With my movement, a pile of letters spilled out onto the floor. Is this seat taken? I asked. The boy smiled. Nope, I've requisitioned it, so they were all his. He certainly had the looks to justify it. I noticed several flowing, flamboyant words written on his desktop in black marker. Love letters go on the desk next door. There was even a considerate arrow pointing to the right. Should I give the love letters back to you? Help me throw them away, will you? His smile was oddly bewitching. Why don't you throw them away yourself? Maybe I was starting to annoy him, or maybe his patience was just that limited. He lowered his gaze and flipped to another test paper. Too lazy. I picked up a notebook from his desk and opened it. Inside, written in neat, flowing handwriting, was a name, Sean. Good. At least he wasn't Theodore. This guy looked like trouble. Chapter 3. After class, Julian came over with a cold expression and dragged me outside. He pulled me all the way up to the rooftop. What are you doing here? I turned my head away from him, tears flowing naturally. Why did you think I'd calmly accept you suddenly not liking me anymore and wanting to call off our engagement? Don't you feel guilty? Am I not allowed to be heartbroken? I like you so much. Of course I'm here, to hold on to you. Julian had never seen me cry before. He panicked immediately. Gloria, don't cry, he said, his voice just as gentle as it had always been, so gentle that I genuinely shed even more tears. This was someone I'd once never imagined separating from. Have you fallen for someone else? No. True, at this point, Julian didn't quite like Lisa yet, but the scales had already begun to tip, which made it all the more ridiculous that, in the end, he would claim the one he loved was me. Then I want to try a little longer. If it still doesn't work, I'll let go gracefully. Don't worry. Julian murmured a soft response. Then he turned and left. At that moment, from the other end of the rooftop, blocked off by piled-up clutter, someone stepped out. He stubbed out the cigarette in his hand and laughed. So blind? Why like him? Wouldn't it be better to like me? I didn't even need to ask his name to be sure this man was Theodore. Every inch of him radiated a roguish air. I wiped my tears and smiled at him. Who says I like him? One act of disloyalty, and he's done for life. But I can't just let Gloria swallow this humiliation for nothing, can I? Using the identity of Julian's fiancé, and a simp, no less, I'd never be able to conquer Theodore. I could hear the disdain clearly in his tone. A spark of interest flickered in Theodore's eyes. He leaned closer, bent down to look at me. Want me to help you? Help me with what? Put horns on him, cheat on him. I want to win him back. The light in Theodore's eyes dimmed slightly, a mocking curve tugging at his lips. I added calmly. And then dump him. If I cheat on him now, he gets to break off the engagement without any burden. Dump all the blame on me, and happily be with that other girl. Not sure if your idea is stupid, or if you are. I shoved him aside in disdain, and walked off. Behind me, Theodore's laughter rang out, lazy and unrestrained. Hey, the name's Theodore. Next time you want to mess with Julian, remember to call me. Chapter 4. It was scorching hot. Because the gym had been taken over by seniors for exams, we could only have class outdoors. The girls complained non-stop. Only Lisa stood under the blazing sun, training seriously. Sweat slid down her fair cheeks, making her look especially pitiful. I shifted my gaze to the basketball court and happened to see Sean passing the ball to Julian. Julian didn't catch it. Instead, he broke into a run toward us. The basketball flew straight at me. I stepped back to dodge it, but tripped over the flower bed behind me. My palms, elbows, and knees all screamed with sharp pain. I looked up at Julian, who hadn't caught the ball at all. He was already carrying Lisa, who had fainted from heat stroke, and running toward the infirmary. A surge of overwhelming anger and an unmistakable stab of bitterness rose in my chest, until Sean stopped in front of me. "Sorry, I'll take you to the infirmary. It hurts." My tears came instantly. He looked at my bleeding knee, his brows knitting together. Guilt and irritation were written all over his face. "I don't want the infirmary. I want to go to the hospital." I stubbornly turned my head, looking toward Julian's retreating back. Sean wasn't stupid. He let out a hoarse laugh. "All right." With that, he scooped me up and carried me straight out of the school. The taxi was blasting cold air. Sean's bangs were damp, hanging over his forehead. There was a kind of decadent beauty to him. I handed him the bottle of water I'd been clutching, the one I'd originally meant for Julian. "Have some water." Sean pulled his gaze back from the window and curled his lips slightly. "Thanks. But I don't drink water prepared for someone else. It's new, unopened." His smile deepened. "Still not drinking it. If it was meant for someone else." Silence settled heavily in the car. At the hospital, the doctor treated my wounds and arranged imaging. While waiting in line, I saw Theodore. There was a cut on his face and some bruising. He'd clearly been in a fight. "There's still class. You should go back. I'll handle this and take a cab myself later," I said, trying to send Sean away. He fiddled with his phone, glanced at me lazily. "It's fine. You don't need to stay. This wasn't your fault." I forced my tone cold. He shot me a sidelong look, put his phone away, and stood up, smiling, both well-behaved and wicked. "Suit yourself." When Sean left, his steps were quick. It was obvious he was a little angry. I tossed the CTQ slip into the trash and walked into the room Theodore was in. The doctor and nurse weren't there. He sat alone on the bed, frowning at his phone. I knocked lightly. Theodore looked up at me. His gaze was intensely invasive, sweeping over me from head to toe. "Got hurt?" My classmate had to rush back. "Could you help me downstairs later?" I asked. Theodore leaned back. "Sure, fair's fair. Help me treat my wound." For the first time, I smiled sincerely. "All right, my ally." Holding a cotton ball, I gently cleaned the wound at his temple. His warm breath brushed against his long lashes. I clearly saw Theodore's eyelids twitch. His eyes, locked with mine, shifted away. The tips of his ears flushed an unnatural red. Why was I so sure I could so easily seduce him? Because in the story, Theodore always humiliated and bullied me. He said Lisa was kind, and I was vicious. He said Julian was a terrible man, but that I didn't deserve Julian anyway. Yet in the end, when I married Julian, Theodore cried. He grabbed my hand, begging me to leave with him. The moment he first saw me, he felt this girl had grown right into his heart. Back then, I had been worn down, all my edges smoothed away. I pushed his hand away timidly and whispered an apology. Was it really me who owed them an apology? Lost in thought, my hand pressed a little too hard. Theodore hissed and grabbed my wrist. "You're treating my wound and spacing out?" I was wondering who beat you up so badly. My voice was soft, carrying a tone that almost sounded like concern. That was when I felt an undisguised stare. Turning my head, I saw Sean standing outside the door, back again. A hint of amusement hung at the corner of his mouth, one hand in his pocket as he watched us calmly. I panicked for a second. Sean just shrugged and left. "What are you looking at?" Theodore followed my gaze toward the door. Only then did I realize how close we were. So close that if I lowered my head slightly, I could kiss his sharp profile. "Nothing." I thought the doctor was back. I stepped away, breaking free of Theodore's grip. He tugged at the hem of his t-shirt and smiled. "There's an injury on my back too." I smiled back. "Then take it off." Theodore blushed. He tried to make some excuse, only to realize I was staring at him directly. Cursing under his breath, he clenched his teeth, grabbed his collar, and pulled his t-shirt off. Bronze skin, clean, defined lines. His body radiated raw desire, like igniting hormones, utterly intoxicating. "Stop staring," he snapped irritably, turning around to reveal the wounds on his back. As I cleaned the blood away, I leaned close to his ear and asked, "Such a great body, why are you shy?" Theodore trembled slightly, grinding his teeth. "Does Julian know you're this wild?" Chapter 5. When I returned, Julian was coaxing Lisa, whose face was pale, the moment my classmates saw me at the doorway. They all fell silent. Julian looked over as well, supporting myself on a desk. I limped toward my seat. As I passed him, Julian grabbed my wrist. "What happened to your leg?" That simple concern made the tears I'd been holding back spill out with ease. "Do you still care about me?" Julian's brows knit tightly together. His Adam's apple bobbed. I stubbornly turned my face away, only to meet Sean's gaze. He was propping his head with one hand, smiling at me brightly. Those alluring eyes were full of interest, practically saying, "Nice acting. Love to see it." "Gloria," Julian's voice was low. "She had heat stroke. And you rushed over like you'd lost your mind. You didn't even catch the basketball. But did you ever see me coming over to bring you water? Did you care that I got hit by the ball and hurt? I'm your fiancé. I'm the one who grew up with you. Now I finally understand why she didn't want to give up her seat for me. So why do you still say you haven't fallen for someone else? I'm not the type to make scenes, if you like her. I'll give you up right now." Julian's expression shifted again and again, from guilt, to pain, to pallor. He denied it urgently. "Gloria, I'm sorry. I don't like her. She's just a classmate. You misunderstood." Whispers spread through the classroom. "Lisa's always all over Julian. She's basically a mistress. Isn't she?" The fiancé showed up and she still wouldn't give up her seat. That's even bolder than a mistress. Julian's no good either. Blind, too. Lisa's tears finally overflowed. She tore her shocked gaze away from Julian. She looked at me, mortified, yet stubbornly resolute. "Gloria, you've misunderstood my relationship with Julian. And it's not that I didn't want to give you my seat. Weren't you the one who said you didn't want it? You looked like you were about to cry. My upbringing wouldn't allow me to do that. Then I'll give the seat back to you." Lisa's voice rose, tears streaming down her face. I smiled and shook my head. "No need. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you." As long as Julian explained it clearly, that's fine. I was the one who overstepped today. I was just too heartbroken. I hope you won't hold it against me. Lisa was completely thrown off by my sudden retreat and show of weakness. Her face flushed slightly as she said it was fine. I gently hooked Julian's fingertip, my voice soft and sweet. "Since you want to make it up to me, will you have dinner with me tonight? I specially learned to cook what you like. Look at my hand, it's burned." I lifted my finger, covered with a bandage, for Julian to see. He squeezed it with concern and agreed gently. But then, Julian actually took out his meal card from the drawer and handed it to Lisa. Lisa refused in embarrassment. "Take it. You don't have money." I maintained my last bit of gentleness. "Julian, you shouldn't be worrying about whether other girls can afford to eat." As I spoke, I took out my own meal card and handed it to Lisa. She stared straight at me. In her pitch-black eyes, a trace of resentment finally surfaced. "No." She pushed the card away. I lowered my head. "Next Monday is the monthly exam. I'll place in the top 3 of the grade and get a scholarship. That won't be money from my parents, it'll be earned by my own effort. Then I'll top up your meal card. Let it be my apology for offending you today. Would that be all right?" Lisa bit her lip, holding back tears, stubbornly looking at Julian. Julian irritably took the meal card back. "Enough, Gloria. Not everyone lives as comfortably as you do. So don't act like excellence comes naturally. Stop humiliating people." I genuinely couldn't believe those words came out of Julian's mouth. This was the first time I realized that from the age of 3, my parents had arranged for me to study skills, languages, and the arts, that I'd collapsed from exhaustion countless times, that I'd been locked in confinement by my father countless times after failures, that the excellence I finally earned was called natural. I couldn't help but laugh. The single tear I had left fell onto the back of Julian's hand. It burned, making him flinch. He might have wanted to say something else, to justify himself, but I was already supporting myself on a desk. Walking back to my seat, Sean lay sprawled over his desk, watching me grin. "Got too into the role and even made yourself cry." I shot him a look. I wasn't acting, and I wasn't crying. He suddenly reached into my desk, pulled out a chocolate bar, and handed it to me. White chocolate, very sweet. I was sure I'd already thrown away all the love letters and gifts. Lowering my head, I saw a few more scattered in my desk. I pushed away his ridiculously good-looking hand, a little annoyed. "Can you wipe off the words on your desk already?" Sean's kindness was like the hazy stars over a city, there wasn't much of it. He casually tossed the chocolate onto my desk and went back to reading. His tone was flat. Sorry, won't come off. Anyone could tell he was mad. I bent down to look for a marker in his drawer. He looked down at me, the gaze so intense it practically set me on fire. When I finally found the marker, I took it out, scribbled over the words on his desk, and handed it back to him with satisfaction. Sean lowered his eyes to the pen and chuckled softly. You're pretty bold with me. The white chocolate was very sweet. Sweet enough to melt the bitterness of what was supposedly natural. Chapter 6. Right in front of Julian. I threw the 2 beautifully packed lunchboxes into the trash. I watched his face gradually turn pale as he left the classroom. He wanted to chase after me, but Lisa grabbed the hem of his sleeve. The back street behind the school was lively. All kinds of small shops and stalls lined the road. I casually walked into an authentic Mountain City hot pot place and ordered a spicy broth. Cooking beef and lamb slices. Under the harsh white lights, the crimson soup bubbled furiously. I ate until sweat poured down my face. Drank the last bottle of iced water. Paid. And left. The sky had already darkened. Colored lights reflecting off each other in the narrow alley. Passing a billiards hall, I spotted a familiar back at the bar. Theodore. I followed him in and saw him heading toward a private room. When our eyes met, he curled his lips into a grin. Got your eye on me? Following me everywhere now? Cried. Theodore stepped closer, lowering his head to inspect my slightly reddened eyes. It was from the chili. I snorted softly. Yeah, looks like your plan to make Julian change his mind isn't going too smoothly. Theodore mocked me lazily, throwing an arm around my shoulders. Forget it. Come on, big bro will teach you how to play pool and cheer you up. I held the cue, leaning halfway over the table to strike. Theodore stood behind me, bending down to guide my hands. Lower your elbow a bit. Don't stick your fingers up like that. His warm breath brushed the back of my ear, intimate enough to make the air feel hotter. He guided my stroke. From the force, I instinctively stepped back, straight into Theodore's chest. The hand he had resting on the table slid naturally to grip my waist. I turned my head and fell into his deep, dark eyes, like a bottomless pool. Do you know what you just bumped into? Theodore's voice was low and hoarse, tinged with restrained irritation. Suddenly, the sharp hiss of a can being opened came from the corner. Both of us turned our heads at the same time. Sean was lounging lazily on the sofa. He tilted his head back and took a sip of cola. Condensation slid down the can, trickling along his fingers to the raised bone of his wrist, strangely sensual. Go on, Sean said, propping one hand against his cheek. Smiling brightly, I shoved Theodore away at once, face slightly flushed, half leaning against the table in obvious overcompensation. He was just teaching me how to play. Sean must have been overheated. He finished the iced cola in one go, crushed the can, and tossed it into the trash. He shrugged, his voice flat. Sorry. Looks like he already made plans to play with me. A clear dismissal. Theodore grabbed my wrist. You sit there. I'll beat him first, then teach you properly. Sean raised an eyebrow with a smile but said nothing. He accepted it by default. The clock on the wall kept ticking. The two of them went back and forth, locked in a tense match. My phone kept lighting up with messages from Julian, all apologies. Gloria. Answer the phone. Gloria. Where did you go? Gloria. I was wrong. He was no longer the Julian who would feel heartache just because I tripped while practicing dance. Finally, Sean won by a narrow margin. The hour hand pointed to 10. It was late. Theodore didn't look too good. I handed him an iced cola I just bought. You were impressive. Just unlucky. Here, consolation prize. The tips of his ears visibly flushed, like clouds at dusk. Humph, a loss is a loss. I don't make excuses. Theodore snorted, but his tone made it obvious his mood had lifted. Sean leaned lazily against the table with his cue, smiling casually. His gaze drifted over to me now and then, probing, appraising. I'd been caught twice already. I knew I couldn't hide it, so I might as well not try. In the story, Sean was a white horse prince. When Lisa first transferred in, her uniform had been handmade by her mother because the official one was too expensive. It looked noticeably different from a university's tailoring. Everyone laughed at her, half awake. Sean happened to come in through the front gate, chatting idly with classmates. What are you laughing at? Look at Lisa's uniform, so ugly. So cheap. No idea where that knockoff came from. A skinny boy sneered loudly. Sean lifted his eyes to look. It's fine. Looks pretty good. Just that one glance, and Lisa fell for the beautiful boy. Later, the love letter she gathered the courage to write was mixed in with everyone else's. That quietly beating, secret heart gradually went still. But this boy's existence planted a seed of trouble between Julian and Lisa. Perhaps it was precisely that frustration that led Julian, at the very end of the story, to return to me. Chapter 7. A university had few students but only the best. The dorms were all apartment buildings, one person per unit. After parting with Theodore on the second floor, Sean and I rode the elevator to the 7th floor in silence. He lived right across the hall from me. He had clearly seen the intimacy between Theodore and me, and he also knew how much I'd been performing my devotion to Julian. Yet Sean seemed to have lost all interest, too lazy to ask a single question. I'm heading in. Sleep early. Sean tilted his chin at me and opened his door. The housekeeper had already come to clean my apartment and left 2 portions of lemon cake I loved. The bathroom water was out. I took 1 slice of lemon cake and knocked on the door across the hall. The door opened a moment later. Sean was wrapped in a black bathrobe. A towel draped over his head. Water dripped from his bangs to the bridge of his nose, slid past his thin lips, and traced down into his sharp collarbones. He was pale, like the first handful of snow you see at dawn. At this moment, no one wouldn't want to stain him. I shifted my gaze slightly and handed him the lemon cake. My place has no water. Could I borrow your bathroom? Oh, Sean drew out the sound. Teasing. He clearly didn't believe me. He'd seen all my faces. He probably thought I was trying some trick to hook him. But he took the cake, stepped aside, and raised an eyebrow with a grin. Come in. No need to be so polite with your desk mate, right? Thanks. Consider it paying you back for the white chocolate. I showered quickly and came out wrapped in a bathrobe. I nodded thanks to Sean, who was half reclined on the sofa, and was about to leave, when there was a knock on my apartment door. Gloria, open the door. Julian's voice came clearly from outside. My heart sped up. Sean straightened, turned, and leaned over the back of the sofa, smiling at me. Your fiancé is here to catch you cheating. The moment he finished speaking, Julian knocked on Sean's door. Startled, I spun around and slipped into Sean's bedroom. Help me. I closed the bedroom door behind me. There was only a bed to sit on. I perched stiffly on the edge, hoping Sean would get rid of Julian quickly. Muffled sounds told me Julian had come inside. He asked Sean where I was, irritated and anxious. Unmistakably so. Sean brushed him off, clearly trying to send him away. But Julian had probably been drinking. His tone was off. He didn't catch the hint. Instead, he dragged Sean into a second round of drinking with him. Between the lines, it was all hazy complaints about me, why I wouldn't let him go, why I couldn't just treat him like a brother, why I kept targeting Lisa. Sean barely responded, only smiling and saying, "How old are you to just now be figuring out whether you like a girl or not?" It went quiet outside, only the sound of bottles being picked up and set down. I waited a long time. When I woke again, Sean was standing by the bed, getting dressed. He had just pulled on gray lounge pants. His upper body was bare in the dim light, painfully pale. Well-defined muscles rose and fell subtly, holding back a boundless sexual tension. Broad shoulders, long arms, a lean waist, sharp abs, every inch had late-night desire. My eyes burned. Sean calmly pulled on a white t-shirt and walked closer. Eyes, control them. Blushing, I lowered my head and lifted the blanket as I apologized. I'll leave right now. He's asleep outside. Be careful if you go out. I froze halfway to getting up. If I went out and Julian woke up, my strategy would plunge straight into hell mode. Sean grabbed my wrist, lifting his eyes to smile, a cool smile. I don't care what you're trying to do. Flirting all over the place, but don't let something like tonight happen again. He didn't even use insulting words. Yet the attitude made me feel deeply humiliated, and a rebellious urge surged up. Since I was already flirting around, already seen as having ulterior motives, why should I spare him? 2 or 3, what difference did it make? I shook free of his grip and met those alluring eyes head on. Relax. My pond is huge, but it just happens not to have room for you. Not interested at all. Dear desk mate, neighbor, handsome guy. Sean's porcelain-like face stiffened for a split second. He looked away. Good. Then sleep here. With that, he carried out a blanket and left. It felt like running into an ice spike, cold and painful, only to realize a daisy was hidden inside. The contrast was huge, unexpectedly cute. When I fell asleep again, I finally noticed. Everything around me was filled with Sean's scent. A clear, cold sea, and sunlight after storm clouds. Intoxicating. Chapter 8. After the exams ended and the results were announced, I placed second. Back when I was at Violet Academy, I had always been first. Seeing the only name above mine, Sean's, that strange competitive urge in me grew even stronger. I really wanted to win against him, if it didn't interfere with completing my conquer tasks. After the monthly exams, the school organized a campus festival. During the day, each class used its own classroom to design activities. Clubs and student organizations set up booths and performances along the tree-lined paths and on the athletic field. At night, all students gathered in the grand auditorium for a masquerade ball. Our class designed a haunted house. All desks and chairs that weren't needed were moved into the hallway. Sean was leaning against one of the desks, his long legs improperly stretched halfway across the aisle. He was fiddling with a model in his hands, a very delicate aircraft carrier. A few girls passing by gathered around him to look. One of them even pointed and asked, "What's this part for?" Sean didn't even lift his eyelids. He curved his lips, his voice carrying a bewitching softness. "I don't know either." Anyone with eyes could tell he was brushing them off. He didn't want to engage. Yet his attitude was far too enticing. So enticing that even as their faces reddened, the girls still lingered beside him, whispering softly. Sean just smiled. The smile gradually faded, yet still gave the illusion that he was listening seriously. Rudeness, taken to its extreme, somehow became politeness. Now I understood where his snowflake-like pile of love letters came from. "Where did you go that day?" Julian asked. He hadn't spoken to me for several days, ever since the results came out, and Lisa had ranked near the bottom again, crying over her desk. Her crying had irritated him. I pulled my gaze back from Sean, lowered my lashes, and said softly, "Went out to clear my head." Julian's fingers at his side curled slightly, then finally rested on my shoulder. "Gloria, I was wrong that day. Don't be angry anymore." As he spoke, he took a 4-leaf clover necklace from his pocket. Every time he upset me, he bought little trinkets like this to placate me. I didn't necessarily like them, but when I thought of how carefully he chose them, I could never stay mad. Yet seeing the necklace now felt like waking from a dream. I blanked out for a moment. When I came back to myself, I slowly squatted down and hugged my arms. Julian panicked and squatted with me. He wiped at my tears, but no matter how he wiped, they wouldn't stop. "Gloria, Gloria, don't cry." His distress and heartache were completely genuine. I needed him to understand. My excellence was never something that came naturally. It was exchanged for countless moments of pain and despair. Only then would he face it properly, treasure it, be proud of it, be moved by it. Julian, others can say my excellence comes naturally, but how could you say that? Do you know how much I suffered? You were the one who carried me out of the confinement room and rushed me to the hospital, weren't you? I looked at him with eyes full of tears. I saw the pain and ache surface on his face. I saw his remorse and guilt. Nowhere to hide. This time, I didn't get first place. Father called and told me to come home. I refused. That was the first time I ever defied his punishment. Because I didn't dare leave. I was afraid that if I left, you wouldn't belong to me anymore. As soon as I finished speaking, Julian stretched out his long arms and pulled me into a tight embrace. He held me very, very tightly. All the affection and tenderness he had forgotten resurfaced at that moment, like a mirage. I leaned against his shoulder and met Sean's gaze. The girls beside him had already left. The model in his hands was complete. The corner of his lips curved slightly, somewhere between teasing mockery and friendly goodwill. "Tonight's masquerade ball, you'll dance with me, right, Julian?" I gently pushed him away and looked into his eyes. He froze for a second. Clearly, he had already promised Lisa. But in the end, he smiled, rubbed the top of my head, and said, "Of course, if not with Gloria, then with whom?" I smiled shyly. "Tonight, I would give you to Lisa, because I wanted you to see my naturally earned excellence. To make you feel inferior, I needed the best partner to make me the queen of the dance floor. After the haunted house was set up, Julian went downstairs for basketball club activities. Only 7 people were left to test run the haunted house. Once inside, cold drafts brushed against our backs. After adjusting to the darkness, I began searching for Sean. Such a perfect ambush site would be a waste not to use. I saw him lounging lazily in the corner, clearly with no intention of playing along, using the excuse of being chased by ghosts. I screamed and ran toward Sean, and tripped over his long legs. Sean reached out with one arm and caught me in his embrace. He was about to let go, but I wrapped my arms around his neck instead, panting, "Don't, I'm scared." A soft laugh brushed my ear. "Theodore, I knew you'd come." I clung to Sean, forcing him to bend down, smiling by his ear. Even if he went to check with Theodore afterward, the result would be the same. I had already asked Theodore to come. If Theodore showed up, then the conquer task came first. If Theodore didn't, then it was just Sean's bad luck. Looking like a celestial being, yet still stirring my greed, Sean didn't speak. He reached up, pinched my chin, and pulled my face back to create some distance, as if examining what scheme I was plotting. I tilted my head up and pressed my lips against his. Cool, soft, unexpectedly a little sweet. Sean snapped out of his daze. The hand on my waist tightened sharply, as if he wanted to crush me. He tried to push me away, but I was faster. Biting down hard on his lip, Sean hissed in pain, then let out a cold laugh. He had probably never been offended like this before. Anger flared. He parted his lips and took control. Fierce and ruthless, less like intimacy, more like venting fury. A faint metallic taste of blood spread between us. My breath was completely taken away, the air growing thinner, until I nearly suffocated. I shoved him away violently and staggered toward the center of the room, fumbling until I found the exit, pounding on the door with a sobbing voice. "Open up, I'm scared." The classmate guarding the door opened it, and I rushed out with my head down. There was a mirror in the women's restroom. I kept splashing water on my face, trying to cool down. My gaze stopped at the wound on the right side of my lower lip. It was still bleeding. He'd bitten hard. Chapter 9. I went back to my apartment to shower and do my makeup, then changed into a red strapless evening gown and put on a black mask. I studied the person in the mirror carefully. Slender and tall, with soft, suggestive curves at the chest, a waist thin as a willow branch, skin white as porcelain. Judging by her figure alone, she was a born temptress. I slipped into high heels, and the moment I stepped out, I ran into Sean, dressed head to toe in a black suit. His mask was hooked around his index finger, not yet worn. He was already in formal attire, yet that rule-breaking, boyish air of his was only made more striking by it. His thin lips were pale, which made the vivid red wound stand out all the more. Sean flicked his gaze over me in an instant, one long brow lifting in an almost imperceptible arc. "Do you have a dance partner?" I smiled at him in a friendly way. The finger hooking the mask tightened slightly, then relaxed. "No." Seeing that I was still smiling, Sean raised his hand and put the mask on, covering most of his face and leaving only his beautiful jawline exposed. "What?" He slipped his hands into his pockets, hiding the small, uncontrollable movements he made when he was a little nervous. I smiled even wider, leaned closer to him, tilted my head up slightly. My red lips stopped less than a foot from his. "Of course I feel sorry for you, so I'm mocking you. Why are you so nervous?" I tilted my head a bit more. "You don't seriously think I'm trying to invite you, do you?" "I told you already, I'm not interested in you." Behind the mask, a cold expression showed through his slightly narrowed eyes. Sean's long fingers gripped my chin a little roughly, using the force to push me half a step back. "Don't get that close to me." With that, he turned and walked away, tall and long-legged. His steps were quick, and he disappeared down the corridor in no time. So he thought I still wanted to kiss him. Then, next time, on the way to the auditorium, I replied to Theodore's messages. "I went to your class's haunted house 3 times and didn't see you once. You messing with me? Gloria. Say something. Waited forever and you didn't come." So I went back to shower and change. Auditorium, red dress, waiting for you to come dance with me. He replied instantly, you really know how to attract trouble. Straighten your clothes, meet your destined one. Theodore, who usually replied instantly, fell silent. The typing indicator stayed there for a long time. In the end, there was only one word, okay. Theodore was an excellent dancer. In the story, he was the best of the ball. The lights always followed him. The girls who danced with him were clearly standing in the light, yet reduced to mere backdrops. Since I was here, I'd just have to wrong him a little, let him be the ornament at the hem of my skirt. As I entered the auditorium, countless gazes turned my way. Some bolder ones even came over to invite me to dance. I politely waved them off. Sorry, I'm waiting for someone. If Lisa was attending the masquerade, her gown had to be from Julian. If Julian gave her a dress but didn't dance with her, there was no way he'd arrive on time. I scanned the room. Sure enough, neither of them was anywhere to be seen. I let out a faintly mocking smile. Theodore appeared in a deep blue suit that made him look even more sharp and upright. He wore a dark red mask and held a single rose in his hand. His distinctive entrance drew many eyes. He walked straight toward me and handed me the rose. Only one? I smiled as I took it. That's not enough for me. I snapped the stem and tucked the rose into the breast pocket of Theodore's suit. Theodore lowered his gaze to the rose. I gently rested my fingers on the leaves. Doesn't it suit you better this way? His eyes swept over me with a hint of aggression as he smiled. It does. The opening music began. Theodore bent slightly and extended his hand in a gentlemanly invitation. I placed my hand in his with practiced restraint and let him lead me into the dance floor. A single beam of light swept continuously over each pair of dancers, searching for the best couple in the room. In the end, it would settle on just two people. During the second dance, all the lights in the hall would go out except for that one beam, and only the best couple could dance to the second song. Theodore's hand rested firmly against my waist. Using the movements of the dance as cover, he leaned close to my ear. I'm really afraid I might accidentally twist you in half. I smiled against his cheek. I'll give you a chance. Hold on tight later. He answered softly. As the music reached its end, he held my waist steady, and I used the momentum to execute a difficult move. My waist twisted into an almost impossible arc. I could feel the hand on me tighten slightly, betraying his restraint. The lights stopped on us. Applause thundered through the hall. One by one, the other dancers left the floor. All the lights in the auditorium went out, except for the ones above our heads. Theodore led me in a graceful dance. His eyes were dark under the white light. They held only me. A satisfied smile curved at his lips. Suddenly, the doors of the auditorium were pushed open. Moonlight spilled in from outside. Everyone turned to look. Julian and Lisa stood there, both dressed in sea blue formal wear. A prince and a Cinderella. Nothing about the pairing drew special attention. Someone even whispered for them to close the door before turning their gaze back inside. The violin surged to its climax. Theodore lifted my hand, spinning me once, twice, 3 times, until my skirt bloomed into vivid roses. The hall fell completely silent. The spinning stopped. Theodore's gaze darkened, and Julian nearly stepped forward. No one could tear their eyes away from that beam of light. As the dance ended, I lifted my skirt and bowed to Theodore. It was the courtesy of a princess to her king. Today, he had been my backdrop. I ought to comfort him a little. Theodore laughed softly. What if I want to take off your mask? Go ahead, I said lightly. Let Julian see how beautiful I am. Theodore's hand paused midair, his expression darkening. I smiled again, coaxing him and let him see who I'm standing beside. Theodore didn't hesitate any longer. He removed my mask, bending slightly, so close to me, those thin lips were about to fall. Gloria! Julian rushed over from the doorway. Lisa stood frozen as the lights in the hall came back on, her embarrassment and resentment plain to see. I grabbed Theodore's hand and pulled him toward the exit. Take me to buy roses. Gloria, don't accept just one flower. All right. Theodore's voice was indulgent to the extreme, until Julian grabbed my wrist. In his beautiful eyes were traces of anger and confusion. He couldn't understand why I was holding another boy's hand, but he had forgotten how Lisa had been leaning against him just moments ago. Gloria, I'm late. Don't go. I looked at him coldly. You're late? As I spoke, I glanced again at the perfectly matching outfits he and Lisa wore. Julian's grip loosened, his face paling. I shook free, and Theodore pulled me away. We were like lovers eloping, fleeing from the glittering chaos into the empty night. Theodore swept me up around the waist and laid me sideways across his black motorcycle. He mounted the bike and twisted the throttle. As it shot forward, he pulled my hand firmly to his waist. Hold tight. I wrapped my arms around him and looked back. Seeing that the doors of the auditorium were still open, Sean leaned lazily against the doorway, a mask hooked in his hand. With a faintly disdainful air, he tossed it into a trash bin and walked back toward the apartments alone. Unhurried, moonlight fell on his black-clad shoulders, clean, restrained, and lonely. Chapter 10. The night was heavy, the streets empty, all the flower shops are closed. Let's go back. The speed picked up again, the wind stinging my face as it cut past. In the end, Theodore still found a flower shop that was just about to close. He stopped the bike and almost rushed inside. "Ma'am, wrap up all the roses for me." The shop owner was a gentle-looking woman. "Young man, I need to go home and sleep. I'm not selling flowers tonight." Theodore breathed lightly, then turned and pointed at me standing at the door. "This girl, if there aren't enough roses, she'll cry." The owner covered her mouth and laughed. "Will the little girl cry? Or will you cry, young man?" As she spoke, she swayed her graceful figure and wrapped up all the red roses from the basket. Her movements were careful and tender, as if she were handling something dearly loved. Under the shop's dim yellow light, Theodore stood to the side with his head lowered. All the roguish air around him had been completely reined in. He paid, handed the roses to me, said nothing, only his gaze was soaked with gentle warmth. With one long step, Theodore mounted the motorcycle and waved me over. On the way back, he rode unhurriedly. The late-night wind was quiet. When we reached the apartment entrance, the door across from us suddenly opened. I curved my lips, about to tease Sean, only to realize it was Julian. Sean, meanwhile, was holding a can of beer, lounging lazily against the wine cabinet. He looked at me sideways, his gaze deep. Julian stared at the vivid roses in my arms, his face gradually darkening. "How do you know Theodore? He and I don't get along. Him being nice to you might just be." I cut him off. "We met the day we went to the hospital. What his intentions are doesn't matter. At least he didn't leave me standing alone in the auditorium without a dance partner. He took me searching through the night for flower shops that were still open and gave me a bouquet of roses." Julian lowered his head and asked softly, "Then, do you like Theodore?" "No, the one I've always liked is you. I only like you." Julian's eyes lit up. He took a step forward, trying to pull me into his arms. I stepped back as well, pressing the roses between us. Behind him, Sean closed the door. The sound was not quiet. Sean's gaze drifted calmly from the roses to my face, the corner of his lips lifting slightly, as if to say, "Liar, but you're already wavering." "Julian, I won't be someone's option. I don't want to be the optimal choice. And I don't want to be a fallback either." Julian reached out and held the hand hanging at my side, solemn and earnest. "I won't." I smiled faintly, gently pulled free, opened the door, and went inside, leaving Julian alone outside. Years of affection, worn away completely in such a short time. Chapter 11. After that day, Julian took the initiative to change seats. He stopped looking after Lisa and came to find me every day instead. Just like before, preparing surprises for me, caring about everything concerning me. Without his help, Lisa's days became increasingly difficult. Finally, on a rainy day, she couldn't hold it in anymore and threw herself into his arms, crying, "Why did you suddenly stop talking to me? Didn't you say we were good friends? Didn't you say you didn't like your fiancé, and that our friendship wouldn't change just because she showed up? Why is it like this now?" The rain outside was pouring. Water streamed down the eaves, forming a curtain of rain in front of the building. I hadn't brought an umbrella. I stood to the side, watching them. Julian held Lisa by the shoulders. His fingers trembled slightly, his expression unreadable. The noise around us was all washed away by the sound of the rain. I couldn't hear anything. I only saw Sean passing by with a black umbrella. "Hey, give me a ride back to the dorm too." "Yeah, we can talk about next week's island survival course." Sean lowered his head slightly, stopped, and glanced at the three of us. Desk mate, come over. I slipped under his umbrella. Normally, Sean would have quietly moved away from me, but this time he didn't, letting me press close to his forearm. Firm muscles, smooth lines, boyishness and strength coexisting. University A had a wilderness survival course, a required credit, held on a private island jointly purchased by the school's board. The island had a rich ecosystem, with rainforests and mountains. Next week was our group's turn. Sean and I had been assigned to the same team. Rain fell on leaves, on the umbrella, on the ground, creating a chaotic symphony. You've been sticking so close to Julian lately. What about Theodore? Sean asked, looking straight ahead. I laughed. He's very well behaved. Theodore knew what I was trying to do. I'd played pool with him a few times in private. He'd sulk a bit. That was all. Very easy to placate. Besides, what right did he have to be angry? We were just allies. Even being a little closer only made us friends. Sean let out a soft laugh and glanced at me from under lowered lashes. It's not that he's sensible. It's that my desk mate is impressive. What exactly do you want to do? Sean's tone shifted slightly. I naturally reached for his wrist, wiping away the rain splashed onto it, flirting around. Obviously. Just then, we reached the apartment building. Sean closed the umbrella. He pressed his thin lips together, stepped into the elevator, leaned his head back slightly against the wall, brows faintly drawn together, a restlessness that refused to fade. Chapter 12. All the students in our batch gathered on the island's beach, waiting for the assessment to begin. Sean wore a pair of camouflage pants and black combat boots. Just those long legs alone were lethal. On his upper body, he wore only a black tank top. His jacket draped casually over his arm. Sunglasses rested on the bridge of his high nose, giving him an unrestrained, cocky air. Julian and Lisa were in the same group. In the original story, their feelings would have surged rapidly to a peak on this island. But today, Julian stood beside Sean. Gloria will be in your care. I glanced at Lisa's half-gloomy face and smiled at Julian. We can walk together after we go in. Once the tasks differ, then we can split up. Sean didn't say anything, and Lisa didn't object either. After all, this was her Prince Charming. How could she object? As we entered the rainforest, Sean still didn't put on his jacket. His pale arms were constantly scratched by branches, opening small cuts that bled. Lisa spoke gently. Sean, you're hurt. Shouldn't you put your jacket on? Sean glanced at her and smiled as he refused. Later, it's a bit hot. Lisa took a small fan out of her backpack and handed it to him. I have a fan here. You should still put it on. Mosquito bites won't be good later. I also took out insect repellent spray and handed it to him. Julian, watching from the side, looked visibly unhappy. Sean smiled, took the spray, and continued striding forward. Lisa was left standing there awkwardly, holding the fan. Soon, she and Julian started arguing, and the flames of that argument suddenly turned toward me. Why was it that she was just caring about a classmate, yet Julian yelled at her? And why was it that I had gone out on a date with Theodore, yet Julian didn't dare to get angry? I turned back to look at the arguing pair and pointed at Lisa. Watch your wording. Don't waste all those years of education. You dare do it yourself but won't let others talk about it? Lisa's eyes reddened. That's enough, Julian roared. You were clearly playing tricks and pretending to be dizzy, and now you're trying to turn the tables? Lisa was stunned by his outburst. When she came back to her senses, she didn't dare talk back. She shoved me hard and ran forward. Who would have thought that behind her was a slope hidden by dense forest? My foot slipped, and I screamed as I fell. Sean was the closest. He jumped down immediately, seeing Julian about to follow. He frowned. Lisa running off alone is dangerous. You're on her team, go find her. With that, he ignored Julian and charged straight down. I was stopped by a massive rock, but my waist hurt as if it had shattered. Sean knelt halfway in front of me and helped me up, and it was at that moment that I saw a snake of extremely vivid colors hanging from a branch, its tongue flicking toward Sean. I don't know where the courage came from, but I suddenly reached out, grabbed the snake, and flung it away. Sean stared in shock, then drew his dagger and drove it firmly into the snake's head. Not scared? Sean looked at me, eyes bright. thin lips curved in a smile. I frowned, holding my aching waist. Of course I'm scared, but I'm more scared of you dying. I don't know what that sentence struck in him. Sean actually laughed, the sound echoing through the rainforest, clear and bright, yet open and unrestrained. He bent down and lifted me up. Only then did I notice a wound on his shoulder, clearly from the snake's bite. It was already tinged with purple. You were bitten. It's poisoned. I pointed at his shoulder. Sean lowered his gaze to look at it and said softly, "Yeah, don't be afraid. It's fine." He carried me along the stream and into a long limestone cave. After setting me down on dry grass, Sean took out some medicine and placed it beside us. "Where are you hurt? Treat your snake bite first. No knife. Forget it." I struggled to grab the collar of his tank top and pulled him closer. My lips pressed against his shoulder. That snake must have been female, very rogue. The bite was close to his collarbone. I sucked hard at the blood from the wound, spat it out, then sucked again, spit, suck, again and again. Sean simply sat there, one arm around my waist, letting me kneel against him, clinging to his shoulder. His entire body was stiff. His neck and ears were flushed with an ambiguous red. His breathing grew heavier. I could feel him desperately suppressing a desire that shouldn't rise. When no more blood came out, I gently licked and nibbled at the wound, as if to comfort him. Something in Sean's mind must have snapped. The hand around my waist tightened, turning from holding to gripping. His free hand seized my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. That single moment of eye contact was like lighting a fuse. Sean lowered his head and kissed me, more frantic than the one in the haunted house, like he wanted to devour me whole. No matter how he kissed me, it wasn't enough. In the end, he had to force himself to stop and let me go. "Where are you hurt?" Sean's once clear, boyish voice was soaked in desire, low and husky. "My lower back." "Will you help me?" I lifted my eyes at him with a teasing smile. Those peach blossom eyes of his curved as well, wicked to the core. Yeah, I had scrapes all over my body, big and small. Only my lower back had really taken a hard hit from the rock. I turned around, took off my jacket, then my tank top, leaving only a bra. Sean's warm breath brushed across my back. "Soon." He sprayed the medicine on. "It'll hurt a bit. Bear with it. You too, bear with it." He chuckled softly, non-committal, and pressed his hand down, not too light, not too heavy. The pain made me let out a soft moan. As he kneaded the area, cold sweat broke out all over me, my voice turning into soft whimpers. "Gently, it hurts. It really hurts." "Sean." Lighter. "Aw, why are you still using so much force?" Sean freed one hand to cover my mouth. His voice was even hoarser than before. "Do you actually want me to keep holding back or not? If you really want to seduce me, you can be more direct. I'll fall for any approach you use." I stopped talking. He slowly rubbed the medicine into my lower back. After I got dressed, Sean carefully treated my other scrapes as well, including the one on my cheek. He applied ointment to the side of my face and even thoughtfully put on a bandage. "It's shallow. It won't leave a scar." "Oh, I'm not worried." I blinked. "You really don't need to be." Sean smiled as he pulled me up from the ground, half supporting me. He led me deeper into the cave. We saw multicolored stalactites and heard the murmur of an underground stream. Finally, we saw countless fireflies, like a sky full of stars, rushing toward us. It was breathtaking. Sean stood beside me, caught a firefly near my ear, his eyes shining like the stars themselves. Chapter 13. Sean was top tier in every aspect of overall ability. Even with someone like me slowing him down due to injury, he still completed our task flawlessly. We got the small red flag at the mountain top. A resort had been built on the summit. It was the school's reward for a long, exhausting day. When we arrived, the resort was almost completely empty. Sean was assigned the presidential suite on the top floor. "Where's your own room key?" I asked. "There are 3 rooms. Are you out of your mind? We're staying here for a whole week. What if Julian finds out?" The moment we stepped into the elevator, I shoved Sean hard, trying to shut down his terrible idea. Sean merely glanced at me and said nothing. When the elevator reached the top floor, he grabbed me and dragged me out, half pulling, half carrying me into the room. The room was dim, lit only by a thin strip of moonlight that happened to fall across Sean's side profile. He pinned me against the door, using his height to cage me in. "Do you like me?" My heart skipped a beat. I avoided his dangerously captivating eyes. Sean chuckled softly, pinched my chin, and turned my face back to him. "I won't hold the past against you, but from now on, you're not allowed to mess around." I shoved him away hard. "Are you joking?" Sean clearly hadn't expected me to lash out. He staggered a step back, his expression turning cold, long eyes narrowing into a dangerous arc. "Isn't having me enough for you? I want both Julian and Theodore." I paused, then added, "I don't like you." "You misunderstood." Sean let out a cold laugh, probably furious beyond measure. "I must have been fucking insane to fall for your bullshit." With that, he opened the door and stormed out, slamming it so hard the walls shook. My waist hurt badly. I lazily lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. After what felt like a long time, the sound of a keycard swipe echoed, and the door opened. Sean inserted the card, turned on the lights, and tossed a bag of medicine onto the bed beside me. That handsome face of his had returned to its usual expression. Lazy, unbothered, a half-smile that never quite reached his eyes, like someone who never truly got angry and never truly cared about anyone. "Why did you come back?" I asked. Sean knelt on one knee beside the bed, looking down at me from above, a smile at the corner of his lips. "You like playing games. I'll play with you." Just then, the doorbell rang. I called out, "Who is it?" "Theodore." Wasn't he supposed to be in a different batch for the island? I scrambled up in a panic, pain twisting my face. I tried to push Sean into hiding, but he didn't move at all. "Didn't you say you'd play with me? Then you can't break my game rules." Sean's mask-like expression cracked for a single second. Then he smiled obediently. "All right." He even had the leisure to pinch my cheek before slipping into the adjacent room, supporting my aching waist. I went to open the door. Theodore walked in without any sense of restraint, scanned me up and down, and asked, "You're hurt?" "Just minor injuries." "Why are you here?" "I was worried you'd feel wronged, then cry because you missed me." Theodore bent closer, smiling teasingly. I pushed him away in disgust. "Impossible. You should go. I need to rest." "Go where?" "This is a presidential suite, isn't it? I'll just sleep with you." Theodore looked utterly calm, clearly having given it serious thought. "Don't mess around. If Julian comes, I really won't be able to explain this even if I..." Before I could finish, the door knocked again. Theodore raised an eyebrow. "Then I'll hide first?" He was surprisingly self-aware, clearly gifted at sneaking around. I opened the door. Sure enough, it was Julian. He looked disheveled and exhausted. When he saw me, the dullness in his eyes finally brightened a little. Julian pulled me tightly into his arms. "I was really worried about you. Are you okay?" "You were worried about me?" I shoved him away, gripping the doorframe tightly to keep him from going inside. After all, there were two men hidden in the room, hard to explain. Julian hesitated, looking defeated. "I don't know either, Gloria, but I'm sorry." That apology pierced my heart like a needle. Maybe all that wavering and all that hurt, just like me, were things controlled by the story's plot. My eyes suddenly grew wet. Before I could ask even a single question, Julian's phone rang. It was Lisa. In that instant, I sobered up. No matter what, there was no going back. He hung up the phone and looked at me apologetically. "When I figure out what's really going on with me, I'll come find you again. Gloria, wait for me." Julian left me only with his back, a back weighed down by unspoken thoughts, walking away without looking back. It felt as though something had happened to him in the rainforest, something I didn't know about. Chapter 14. Go out first. I opened the door, planning to get rid of one of them. What I didn't expect to see was Theodore and Sean, both sitting on the sofa, drinking. Why were the two of them hiding in the same room? Awkwardness rose instantly. Theodore raised an eyebrow and spoke first. "Gloria, you didn't tell me there was another one hidden in here." "We're just teammates." I smiled, deliberately distancing myself from Sean. "This presidential suite is technically his too. We haven't settled it yet, after all. We finished so fast thanks entirely to Sean." Sean's expression visibly darkened. Theodore's smile deepened. "Gloria, If it's all thanks to him, kicking him out wouldn't be right. Let him stay. I stared at Theodore in shock, unable to believe he was being so generous. But clearly, he was holding back mischief. He added, "That said, it's not ideal for a man and a woman to stay alone together. There happen to be 3 rooms here. Sean and I get along pretty well. I'll stay too and keep an eye on him." Sean laughed in disbelief. "Keep an eye on me?" Theodore lifted a brow. "Gloria, what do you think?" These 2 were impossible to get rid of. "Fine." I shrugged in resignation. A lot of people had seen Theodore arrive. He was sociable, and soon someone called him downstairs for drinks. After I finished showering, Sean, who'd gone out for dinner, came back, carrying takeout. He beckoned to me. "Come here, eat first. Then I'll help you apply the medicine." I answered softly and obediently walked over. Sitting beside him, under the warm yellow light, Sean's profile looked unexpectedly gentle. He fiddled with his phone, expression calm. "How long do you plan to keep playing? Until they're completely in love with me?" Sean lifted his eyes and glanced at me, smiling. "Starved for affection?" "Probably." My heart inexplicably twitched. "I can love you," Sean said lightly, so lightly it was hard to tell if it was a question. The noodles were really good. I slurped up a big bite. Cheeks puffed. "You can choose not to love me. They can't." Ever since that mechanical voice appeared at my birthday banquet, I'd questioned countless times whether it had all been a hallucination. But for a long stretch of time, I kept dreaming, dreams that aligned perfectly with the memories in my mind, even when I chose to let things unfold on their own. The mechanical voice appeared again. "Please actively conquer. Please actively conquer. Please actively conquer." It broadcast the message 3 times in a cold, rigid tone. Afterward, my entire body hurt as if it were being torn apart. Like a warning, after many failed attempts to communicate with it, I finally got an answer. I had to do this. As long as the conquest succeeded and the story's ending changed, this world would break free from the control of the narrative and become a real world. Every living being would no longer exist solely for the sake of a preset story. Sean kicked the chair beside him, pinched my cheek, and laughed. "You're something else. If you can't laugh properly, don't force it. It looks awful." I swallowed the last bite, brushed his hand away, and wiped my mouth. I stood and beckoned to him. "Come help me with the medicine. Why are you still sitting there sulking? You know I'm angry and you're not even going to coax me?" Sean lowered his gaze, his tone carrying a faintly jealous bite. Still, he obediently followed me into the room. The bag of medicine he'd tossed in earlier was still on the bed, untouched. I turned around naturally, took off my top, and lay face down on the bed. Sean stood behind me for quite a while. "Hurry up," I urged. He laughed in exasperation. The cold medicine made me shiver, but Sean's palm was warm. I still cried out under his kneading. "Don't make that sound." I turned my head, eyes misty with tears, to look at him. The tips of his ears were slightly red, though his face remained calm. "I'm only like this in front of you." Sean clearly didn't believe me, but his eyes and voice were smiling. "Yeah, right. It was true. What you see is who I really am." I lifted myself slightly, smiling with a hint of coquettishness. "Weren't you asking me to coax you? Dare say you don't like this?" Sean abruptly pressed me back down, firmly pinning me into the soft bedding. His eyes were faintly red. His Adam's apple rolled, his chest rising and falling, an intoxicating display of desire. He tossed my shirt onto my face, his voice hoarse. "Put it on." I obediently pulled the t-shirt back on. Before I could even lift my head, I was suddenly pressed down again. Sean braced one hand beside my face, staring me down. "Gloria, you can play however you want, but if you provoke me, don't even think about running." I didn't. In his pitch-black eyes, starlight flickered, his thin red lips curved slightly, the calm certainty of a hunter who had locked onto prey. Finally, the scorching kiss fell. The night was far too long, and Sean wasn't satisfied with just that. He indulgently let his kisses trail down my neck, my collarbone, my shoulder blades. He stirred the fire in me, only to rest his head in the crook of my neck, breathing lightly. "Don't even think about it. I'm not letting you have your way." "Then who are you planning to let have their way?" I gritted my teeth and pinched his lean waist. Sean laughed. Bright as the moon, his boyishness overwhelming. Chapter 15. I changed into a crewneck t-shirt and dabbed concealer along my neck, barely managing to cover the marks Sean had left. Theodore told me to get ready and go downstairs to hang out with him. Sean wanted to come too, so when Sean and I arrived together at the bar downstairs, Theodore's drinking motion paused for a beat. He raised an eyebrow and waved me over. I obediently went and sat beside him. Why is he here? Aren't you two friends? I ran into him on my way out and casually asked for you. Theodore laughed at that, long eyes curving, clearly in a good mood. Sean sat diagonally across from me, drinking casually with the people around him, but his gaze kept sweeping over from time to time, overtly possessive. Luckily, Theodore was extremely well behaved. Otherwise, I was genuinely worried Sean would lose his temper. Theodore, what exactly is your relationship with Our Lady Gloria? A buzzcut guy asked teasingly, without even lifting his eyes. Theodore ordered me a cup of warm milk. Good friends. Everyone around laughed. Only Theodore looked at me, smiling with his eyes, as if saying, well, aren't you going to praise me? My hand, resting on the sofa, quietly moved closer in the dark and caught Theodore's. He froze for just a second, then held back, sliding his fingers between mine, interlacing them tightly. Sean's gaze swept over again, sending a shiver up my spine. His eyes drifted downward, paused briefly. Then he raised his glass toward me. The curve of his lips carried a faintly mocking edge. Theodore was in high spirits and drank every toast sent his way. By the end, he could barely tell where he was. It was Sean who half carried him back. The moment we entered the elevator area, Sean let go. Theodore's head knocked against the wall with a teeth-aching thud. He still didn't wake up. Sliding slowly down the wall, Sean reached out, hauled me over, and pressed me into a kiss. Freeing one hand, he grabbed mine the same way Theodore had earlier. Between heated kisses, he asked, do you like it? What if he wakes up? Let him see. Didn't I just have to watch too? Sean's voice carried a trace of anger. He was usually pretty composed. I'd never heard him talk this rough. It made me laugh. I kissed the corner of his lips and his jaw. Again and again. The elevator doors opened. Sean dragged Theodore up from the floor and rather roughly tossed him onto the bed. Theodore was dead drunk. He actually reached out and grabbed Sean. Don't go. Sean's face instantly darkened, but it didn't end there. Theodore wrapped an arm around his waist. Why are you so hard? Been working out? I couldn't hold it in and slapped my thigh. Laughing, Gloria. Sean ground out through clenched teeth, shoved Theodore away, and kicked him once in irritation. Theodore sucked in a sharp breath. Gloria, why are you so mean? I can't even hug you now? Who was it that kissed my face in the pool hall to coax me before? Huh? Don't tell me you still like Julian? Other than not recognizing people, I almost suspected he wasn't drunk at all. That line of thinking was too clear, completely throwing me under the bus. Sean shut the door, glanced at me, said nothing, and went into his room. His face was cool, jealous, and badly so. I knocked. After a long while, Sean finally opened the door a crack. What? I tugged at the hem of his shirt, smiling. What are you mad about? I only kissed his cheek. I almost slept with you. Is that so? Sean's eyes were even colder, his face giving nothing away. He clearly believed I was lying. Thinking of the haunted house that time, my smile deepened. I didn't explain further, just heartlessly rose on my toes and kissed his protruding Adam's apple. Of course, I turned to leave, but Sean grabbed me back. Little liar. He bit me. It was punishment. In the end, unwilling, he asked me, is being devoted really that hard? There was even a trace of something absurdly like grievance in his tone. I've always been devoted. It's not hard. I stared at the stark white wall. I was genuinely puzzled. Was being consistent with one person really that difficult? If you're with the person who first made your heart race, why can't you give everything to hold on? Like pure cherry blossoms, how beautiful. Sean's body stiffened. He leaned against my neck and said nothing more. His breathing grew heavy, as though wrapped in dark fog. Julian. Theodore, who do you actually like? I cut him off, cupping his face. Why can't it be you? Sean? I like you. His gaze flickered, then settled into stillness. His lips curved faintly, helpless, indulgent. He didn't believe me. You've gotten good at sweet talking. I took his hand and led him to sit on the bed. I'm not sweet talking you. Making them fall in love with me is. The rest of the sentence was suddenly muted. I smiled and changed my wording. It's something I have no choice but to do. Do you believe me? Sean looked at me, his grip tightening slightly. That day in the haunted house, I knew it was you. The words were like fireworks igniting a snowy night. Sean yanked me down and kissed me fiercely against the bedding. I believe you. This time, he didn't hold back. Utterly improper. My crewneck t-shirt was dragged into a v-neck, torn and messy, but he still stopped at the very last step. He said, "Don't be afraid. Let's stop for now. Wait a little longer." Sean wrapped me up in the blanket and held me through it, cocooned like a chrysalis. I struggled a bit. I'm not scared. I am. Sean covered his face with one hand. I'm afraid you'll regret it. Afraid I won't be able to hold back later. A soft, sweet kiss landed on the side of his face. Chapter 16. Theodore showed up at my door early in the morning. Hair a mess. Face dark as he knocked. What is it this early? I looked at him guiltily. Good thing I'd snuck out of Sean's room after waking up. Theodore bent down to look at me. Why are you feeling guilty? Did you do something improper to me last night? What nonsense are you talking about? Then why does the back of my head hurt so much? Theodore reached up to touch it and sucked in a sharp breath, thinking of that heated kiss in the elevator. My face couldn't help but warm. I lowered my head slightly. Naturally, it didn't escape Theodore's eyes. You kissed me again, didn't you? You're sick. I pushed him, about to close the door, only to realize Sean was leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed, watching us. Theodore smiled smugly. All right. I don't mind anyway. Hurry up and get ready. I'm taking you surfing. Then he turned to Sean. Come along too. When I came out wearing a black swimsuit, both of their gazes shifted subtly. Theodore grabbed my shoulders and shoved me back into the room. What are you wearing? Change it. There are a lot of bad men outside. I struggled. Everyone dresses like this, okay? Suddenly, a shirt was tossed onto my face. It's really sunny outside. Cover up with this. So you're the only one with a shirt now? Theodore shot back sarcastically. Still, he took Sean's shirt and draped it over my shoulders, making sure I wore it properly. In the elevator, I heard Theodore, who had fallen a step behind, ask Sean, "Are you into Gloria?" My heart tightened for no reason. Sean laughed. A little wicked. Take a guess. Heh. I'm not guessing. When you strike out, don't fall too deep. Bro. Theodore slung an arm around Sean's shoulders in mock consolation. By the time we reached the beach, it was already lively. Julian was there too, sitting beside Lisa, his expression distant. When he saw us, he paused slightly and smiled, but made no move. Instead, he let Lisa cling to his wrist and act coquettish. It felt as though the conquer progress had suddenly reset to zero. I frowned in confusion. Theodore leaned close to my ear. Are you actually any good at this? If not, just forget it. He's just a jerk. No, I said, pushing Theodore lightly and urging him toward the water. Precisely because he's a jerk. I can't just let it go so easily. Seeing how close we were, Julian's gaze finally darkened, but that was all. I tumbled countless times in the sea. Theodore laughed loudly each time, pulling me up only to watch me fall again. Sean didn't seem too interested. He lounged on a deck chair, sunbathing, behind his sunglasses. I couldn't tell whether those eyes were coldly watching us. Cool seawater was soaked with the scent of sunlight. Tiny fish pecked lightly at the soles of my feet, and a bold idea formed in my mind. Maybe Julian was also being controlled by the story. Right now, he might be starting to realize he had feelings for me, but still struggling. That was why he was deliberately distancing himself, unwilling to admit it. Following the story logic, it would take me being gravely injured, on the brink of death, for him to finally wake up. Absolutely not. I didn't want to be that miserable. I was the female lead. Couldn't I get some special treatment? As I choked on seawater, I questioned the silent mechanical voice in my head. Just as I was about to choke to death, it finally responded. Congratulations. Host. Hidden storyline unlocked. Protect the male lead from injury. Mission item, Angel's Protection. Granting the host immunity from true damage. What do you mean by immunity from true damage? It will look serious, but there will be no actual harm. Pain perception will be blocked, and no marks will remain afterward. That item was pretty great. Why hadn't it given me more help like this before? I was complaining internally when it disappeared again. Theodore suddenly hauled me out of the water and patted my back. As he patted, he scolded me. Are you stupid? The water's so shallow, why were you holding your breath in there? You scared the hell out of me. I spat out a mouthful of water, then looked up at him apologetically and smiled. Theodore lowered his gaze to me, his face flushing. He looked away. Let's go. We're going up to eat. No more playing in the water. Chapter 17. Sean followed us around for 2 days straight, growing more and more irritated, to the point where he was hard to placate. I advised him that out of sight was out of mind, he should just stay in his room and play some games. He gave a cold laugh and, sure enough, didn't come out again. Theodore took me skiing, and we ran into Julian again. In the ski resort lobby, the mechanical voice in my head suddenly rang out. Hidden storyline triggered. Host. Please prepare. I fixed my gaze on Julian, alert to any danger around us. What could possibly happen here that would require me to save him? What are you staring at? Theodore leaned in, following my line of sight and spotting Julian and the others. Before he could toss out a sarcastic remark, we saw the chandelier above Julian's head start to sway precariously. I shouted and rushed forward without thinking. Watch out! Theodore didn't even have time to grab me from behind. A massive crash sent the entire lobby into chaos, people scattering in panic. I slammed Julian to the ground. His hand touched my back, his palm came away covered in blood. His eyes turned crimson, his voice trembling, almost breaking. Gloria, don't scare me. It didn't actually hurt, but I felt dizzy. When I woke up, Julian was lying by my bedside, gripping my hand tightly. Outside, the sky was dark and heavy like deep water. Gloria. Julian looked at me, his eyes instantly reddening, tears trembling on his lashes. He leaned forward and hugged me. After a long while, once he'd calmed down, he finally looked at me seriously. What I'm about to say, you might not believe it. I don't expect you to forgive what I've done these past days. I just hope you'll give me a chance to make it up to you. I love you, Gloria. I've never been moved by anyone else. Never thought of being good to anyone but you. But when I saw Lisa, it was like another person suddenly took over my body, making me do things that made no sense. I couldn't really hear his explanations anymore, because the moment he said I love you, my heart trembled. A tear slipped from my left eye, falling like a release. At the same time, the mechanical voice sounded. Congratulations, host. Conquest of the male lead successful. Don't cry, Gloria. I was wrong. Julian reached out to wipe away my tears, his eyes full of pain and regret. I held his hand and shook my head. Julian, I believe you now. I don't blame you anymore. I don't resent you, but I've let you go. We're just pitiful characters. From the moment we gained self-awareness, we were destined to miss each other. But when I pushed you away, the only person in my mind was Theodore. Just like you said, you don't know why you were good to Lisa. And I don't know why I kept entangling myself either. But now I do. I know who I like. I looked into Julian's eyes and smiled gently. A lie told too sincerely. So sincere that Julian's face drained of color. He lowered his head and choked out. Really? I answered softly. I watched his shoulders tremble slightly, and I saw the door open. Sean stood there, sweat soaking his bangs, his expression colder than ice, half leaning against the doorframe as he caught his breath. It was over. He'd heard everything. My gaze darted around, panic written all over my face. Julian noticed Sean too. I'll step out for a bit. After he left, only the two of us remained in the hospital room. You heard that? I lied to him. I tugged at Sean's clothes, trying to coax him. Sean sat by the bed, picked up an apple, and began peeling it unhurriedly. Yeah, you lied to me too. He handed me the peeled apple, propped his chin on his hand, and looked at me lazily, relaxed, yet with a trace of desire hidden underneath. It made my heart itch. Where's Theodore? Sean lifted his eyes slightly, mockery seeping through. He saw you throw your life away for Julian. When he found out you were fine, he got so angry he ran off to drink. Who knows, probably surrounded by beautiful women right now. Want to go comfort him? The resentment was so thick it almost knocked me over. Then why did you come? To see if you were dead. Sean's face darkened, his tone sharp. I took a bite of the apple, reached up to grab his collar, and shared the apple between us. Sweet, right? With you here, it doesn't hurt at all. Sean swallowed the apple and sneered. If Theodore were here with you, you'd be discharged already. Is the apple one gave you really that unpleasant? I lowered my head, pretending to look pitiful. I don't like apples. Something in my heart was poked, sour and numb. I obediently lay back down, covering most of my face, hoping to hide the rising heat. I'm really tired. Let me sleep a bit longer. Chapter 18. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. It wasn't until I was discharged and saw the posts on the school forum that I realized I'd already become risked her life for love and the ultimate, tragically devoted simp. Aside from the wildly popular video of me saving someone in the ski resort lobby, another video had gone viral as well. Lisa took the initiative to sit with Julian and eat together, but Julian couldn't even be bothered to lift his head to look at her. Lisa seemed to be comforting him and picked up a chicken wing from her own plate to put it on his. Julian said something, his expression cold, and dumped all the food straight into the trash, leaving Lisa sitting there alone, crying, pitiful beyond words. Today was the last day of the island trip. After returning to campus and finishing final exams, it would be senior year. At a university, seniors basically don't stay on campus anymore, most go work at their family companies, preparing to inherit the business. If I didn't smooth things over with Theodore now, it would be very hard to continue the conquer. Sure enough, when I arrived at the resort bar, Theodore was right there, having the time of his life in the crowd. The booth was filled with well-dressed men and women. When he saw me, his expression cooled for a split second. Then he smiled even brighter. Congratulations, Lady Gloria, on winning your fiancé back. He raised his glass toward me from afar and downed it in one go. You didn't even come see me at the hospital. I walked over and sat beside him. Theodore poured himself another drink. Under the dim lights, he looked especially languid. Your fiancé was guarding you. What would it have looked like if I'd gone? I grabbed his wrist and said softly. But I told him the one I like is someone else. His hand jerked. Wine spilled from the glass, splashing onto my hand. Heh. Theodore laughed coldly. Lady Gloria, are you messing with me? He handed me the glass. Drink this, and I'll believe you. Deal? I'd just gotten out of the hospital. Would drinking kill me? But the coldness in Theodore's expression didn't look like a joke. Anxiety crept in. In the end, I took the glass. Just as it touched my lips, he knocked it away. He threw his black leather jacket over my head, covering the springtime curves revealed by the spilled wine. Are you fucking serious? You'd really drink it? Trying to die? Theodore was furious, his chest rising and falling. His physique was on par with a male model. Every inch of him radiated sex appeal. No one there could tear their eyes away from him. I wriggled out from under his jacket. What choice do I have? You were angry. Theodore said nothing, wrapped an arm around me, and pulled me away. Behind us, murmurs spread. That was when I learned that for the past few days, aside from showering and eating, he'd barely left the bar. We sat by the sea. Waves crept over the white sand, inch by inch eroding us. Theodore lit a cigarette and sat a short distance away, looking disheveled. He didn't speak, just stayed silent, stubbornly waiting for me to speak first. When we go back, I'll break off the engagement. Theodore turned to look at me, his eyes dark. Then why did you save him? That was the part he couldn't get past. But at that moment, my thoughts drifted. He couldn't get past it, let alone Sean. He had even heard my so-called heartfelt confession. My heart suddenly dropped, hard and fast. I wanted to find him, to hug him, to kiss him, but the long-absent mechanical voice sounded again, issuing its familiar warning 3 times. Please actively conquer. Amid sharp pain, I sat back down. I smiled at Theodore helplessly. I just wanted him to owe me. I'm too competitive. I didn't want to lose this. You can't lose. But you can lose your life? Theodore's expression was terrible, red eyes reflecting the red glow of his cigarette. I lowered my gaze, leaned closer, took his hand, staying very near. There won't be a next time. What does that have to do with me? Theodore stubbed out the cigarette and tossed it aside. His tone was arrogant, almost sulky, but his grip on my hand tightened hard. We didn't speak again until we ran into Julian on the way back. Theodore very deliberately pulled me into his arms, half hugging me. Julian's face was a little pale. He nodded slightly and looked away. I remember, a long, long time ago, when Julian liked me very much. He said I had to like him for my whole life. I asked him what if I liked someone else. He was silent for a long time. Just when I was about to leave, he said, "Then I'll wait. I'll wait until you don't like someone else anymore." Back then I laughed and said I wouldn't. As long as you like me for life, I won't change my heart. Who would have thought our love was nothing but an absurd play? Now it was time for an even more theatrical curtain call. I didn't look at him again. I let the elevator doors close. Theodore finally loosened his grip. I know you grew up together. You can miss him, but don't stay like this forever. I'll worry. I shook my head and smiled. I'm just feeling sentimental. What are you worried about? We're just good friends right now, aren't we? The words good friends. I bit down on them hard. Chapter 19. After finishing my exams and returning home, my father was actually there. He sat on the sofa, his expression stern and composed. Julian's family will come today to discuss breaking off the engagement. You go out and have some fun, my father said. His tone wasn't cold. After all these years, this was the first time he had stood in a father's position to protect me. An overwhelming ache welled up inside me, and I stared at him blankly. I had thought that once he knew about what happened at school, he would make me stay in the confinement room for 3 days, or at the very least kneel in the ancestral hall for half a day. What are you crying for? My father's lips curved upward. It wasn't exactly kind, more stiff and unfamiliar, but I couldn't hold it back. I turned around and let the tears fall. I had been trying so hard to be the perfect heiress of the family that I had long forgotten. I was his daughter, a princess who could throw herself into his arms and act spoiled. Perhaps because the male lead, Julian, had already been successfully conquered. The world had begun to break free from the control of the story. At that moment, my heart was trembling. When Theodore succeeds as well, maybe only then will I see a truly blue sky. Sean said he had gone to Italy for a vacation. Being shown such understanding by my father put me in an exceptionally good mood. So I booked the earliest flight to Italy, and I saw Sean. He sat on the hood of a Lamborghini, dressed all in black, blending into the car itself, drawing countless glances from passers-by. I ran straight into his arms, and he caught me. My family and Julian's are discussing the engagement annulment. My dad didn't punish me at all. He even let me come out to have fun. Sean, I'm so happy. As I spoke, I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed his cheek. He lifted me up and stuffed me into the passenger seat, then leaned in and kissed me. You came to find me. I'm pretty happy too. Since you're already so happy, how about I stay here with you all summer? After a moment of silence, Sean pulled away slightly and looked me over with a flat expression. What kind of scheme are you plotting? I gave an awkward laugh. Doesn't your family have a branch company in Italy? You could do your internship here, and I'll come visit you whenever I have time. Theodore was very clingy. I was afraid that when I went to conquer Theodore, Sean would mess things up. Sean let out 2 cold laughs, said nothing, and got into the driver's seat. He stepped on the accelerator, and the car shot forward like it was flying. He was furious. I didn't dare say a word. Sean took me to his place, silently helped me put away my luggage, and made a simple meal. Sitting at the table, I ate while gathering my thoughts. Just about to speak, when he said, "One at home, one abroad. You've really planned this well." His tone was cold, giving nothing away, but I knew he was still angry. Then how about, fine? Sean cut me off, staring straight into my eyes. Before I could react, he repeated. I said fine. At that moment, the flutter in my heart was indescribable. It made me feel that I was truly alive, and so was the person in front of me. Ever since I learned that my life was nothing more than an absurd novel, That sense of unreality had suddenly been wiped away by him. The black and white world was dyed in brilliant colors. Vivid. Magnificent. Sean wiped away my tears. Helpless to the extreme. Shouldn't I be the one crying? I kissed him eagerly, and was met with an even fiercer response. Everything was real. Chapter 20. The summer I spent with Sean was short and sweet. Being in love felt like the sea, mysterious. Like the wind, gentle. Like sunlight, intense and warm. But I had to go back and find a way to deal with Theodore. To bring an end to this so-called story setting. Maybe my father would become more like a real father. Maybe my mother would stop being that fragile wife who only knew how to cry and never made her own decisions. Maybe everyone would finally have a color of their own. Theodore was the second young master of his family. The reason he lived so freely and recklessly was because he had long since given up on himself. His older brother was born with a serious illness. He existed only as his brother's blood bank. His organ reserve, a walking corpse living solely for his brother. Compared to conquering him, I wanted more to save him. To make him understand that everyone is born free, and everyone is born equal, to let him escape that resigned, self-destructive setting he had accepted. When I returned to the country, Theodore was racing cars at Looming Mountain on the outskirts of the city. He had already finished one round. His t-shirt was soaked through, the crowd around him screaming, only he still wore a faint look of fatigue. When he saw me, his eyes finally lit up a little. So it's true what everyone in a city's been saying, that you stole our high society Gloria right out of young Master Julian's hands. Damn impressive. Bro, our Theodore's got looks. Looks. And more looks. Stealing someone's girl is nothing, right? Theodore laughed and told them to get lost. His expression relaxed. I handed him the water I'd bought. While I was studying abroad. You were just hanging around here fooling around every day? What's wrong with fooling around? Theodore took the bottle and drank deeply, sweat sliding down his jawline. It was impossible to look away, but the smile on his face faded slightly. Despising me now? I pressed my lips together. No, if you're going to race, take me with you. Let me sit in the passenger seat. Stop messing around. Theodore frowned and refused, but the people around us started whistling, especially Walter, that notorious rich brat from the Jean family. He got excited. I think Gloria's idea is great. Next round. Take a girl in the passenger seat. If you win, I'll give you this car. You've wanted it for ages, right? Theodore refused, wrapping an arm around me, ready to leave. I didn't move. You can play, but I can't. Theodore, don't be so double-standard. Or is it that you know it's dangerous and don't want to get me killed? Ungrateful. Theodore's face darkened as he pointed at me. Then dragged me into the car. Amid the cheers, the race began. The two sports cars shot forward like bullets. They were driving insanely fast, everything blurred. The road impossible to see. They were gambling with their lives. My face went deathly pale. At a sharp turn, I couldn't help but scream. Theodore snapped out of that head-on-the-line thrill, slowed down in frustration, and reached for my hand. He apologized in a low voice. I'm sorry. Don't be scared. In the end, he crawled back at a turtle's pace, and lost the car to Walter. Everyone said Theodore was done for, put a girl in the car and he wouldn't even dare hit 100. He just smiled and accepted it. You're afraid I'll die, but you're not afraid you'll die and leave me alone? Theodore looked at me, silent. I stared back until he finally gave in, pulled me into his arms, and sighed. I really give up on you. While we were eating, Theodore told me Lisa had been expelled. Without Julian's help, it was nearly impossible for her to live a decent, normal life at a university, and with her grades, she couldn't get that scholarship either. So she chose to take a risk, plagiarism and cheating. She was caught, expelled. How is she now? I asked. Back home helping her mom sell fruit? What? Do you feel sorry for her? Want to go buy some fruit? I shook my head. Maybe when the world truly breaks free from the story's control, Lisa could become an ordinary person too, living a stable life. Theodore's phone rang. After he answered, cries came from the other end, and his face went instantly pale. His mother was hysterical. I could hear her desperately demanding that Theodore rush to the hospital immediately to save his brother. Theodore's expression grew heavy, but in the end, he grabbed his keys, I caught his arm. I'll go with you. A flash of embarrassment crossed his face as he tried to refuse. But Theodore had never been able to refuse me. He took me to the hospital the entire way. He didn't say a word. The moment we stepped inside, his completely uncomposed mother grabbed him and dragged him forward. Hurry and save your brother. Your brother can't die. Theodore was so tall, yet he was being pulled along by his mother. Stumbling, it made my chest ache for no reason. I stayed by Theodore's side and looked at the distraught woman. Then I reached out and held Theodore back. Auntie, have you ever asked Theodore whether he's willing? Theodore froze. So did the woman. What's there to be unwilling about? Her expression turned cold. That's his brother. I gave birth to him, raised him, gave him everything good. What right does he have to be unwilling? Theodore shook off his mother's hand, his face deathly pale. That's enough. Don't pull me. He found the whole scene unbearably humiliating. His head lowered so far it was almost in the dust. I took the initiative to hold Theodore's hand. Auntie, my maternal grandfather has lived in Germany for many years. He's been a doctor his whole life and has done extensive research on your son's condition. He can operate again. Shock turned instantly into joy on her face. She stepped forward, about to grab my hand, but I stepped back instead, still holding Theodore's hand. But I can also choose not to help. Because I am an independent, free person, I have the right to choose. As long as I'm not harming anyone, no one has the right to bind me and force me to be a good person. The woman opened her mouth. Auntie, I know you want to scold me, but right now, you should be begging me. Theodore's mother lowered her head. Tears filled her eyes, like every mother in the world who deeply loves her child. But she had never shared even a fraction of that love with Theodore. Theodore's grip on my hand tightened slowly. This blood-soaked reality, he could no longer bear to hear it. I didn't let him escape. He wasn't allowed to escape. I needed Theodore to understand that there truly are parents who do not love their children, so he would stop deceiving himself. I needed Theodore to understand that not being loved was not his fault. That he could live openly and uprightly. For himself. Auntie, before coming here, I already contacted my grandfather. The hospital should have been in touch with Uncle by now. Your son will soon be transferred to Germany for treatment. I cut off Theodore's mother's tearful pleas. She stood there stunned, then cried as she thanked me, sincerely, fervently, as if she wanted to kneel and kowtow to me. Theodore stood motionless, silent like a painting, but she couldn't see him. Mom, Theodore finally spoke. Now that my brother can be saved, am I completely useless? His mother looked awkward, even distant. You're also Mom's son. After saying that, she hurried off to see her real son. I watched Theodore's tears fall one by one, splashing onto the hospital's tiled floor. I could almost hear them shatter. So tears could be this heavy. I walked with him further inside, stopping outside the ward, looking at the warm scene within. A father asking with concern, a mother bustling about attentively. Theodore's expression finally settled into complete calm. I took Theodore to the riverside. We sat side by side, beer in hand. Why did you deliberately do that? He asked. I clinked bottles with him and took a sip. Theodore, they just don't love you. But so what? Instead of making things hard for yourself, blame them. The ones at fault are your parents, not you. How can you punish yourself and refuse to love yourself? Look, your brother has a chance now. They don't need you anymore. Are you going to die now? Theodore laughed softly. That's a terrible way to talk. Don't die. You have to live. Theodore, everything will get better. He suddenly leaned in and kissed me. I turned my face slightly, and the kiss landed on the corner of my lips. Hey, hold on. We're just good friends right now. No funny business. Theodore grinned wickedly, his vitality returning. If you're with me, then it wouldn't count as funny business, would it? He straightened up again. I know, I've been lying to myself all these years. It's exhausting. Gloria, don't interfere in my life too much. If you do, you won't be able to shake me off. Theodore, I am going to interfere. I looked into his eyes. At this moment, what filled my mind wasn't conquest. It was the urge to save another version of myself. He reached out and covered my eyes, his voice hoarse. Okay. Chapter 21. I rented an apartment directly across from Theodore's place. I unlocked the door with my fingerprint and went in. only to see him lying shirtless on the bed, sleeping like the dead. I pulled open the curtains. Sunlight spilled in. Theodore turned over irritably, full of morning grumpiness. "Gloria, try waking me up again and see what happens." His voice carried a dangerous, husky edge. I knelt halfway by his bed and smiled. "It's already 9:30. Waking up early is the start of a beautiful day. Let's go downstairs for breakfast. Then go out and have some fun. If you want to go on a date with me, just say it." Theodore laughed and rolled right out of bed. His body had a wild, untamed beauty, raw vitality that felt like it could swallow anyone watching. I looked away, a little embarrassed. Theodore said generously, "Keep looking. I don't mind." Outside the complex was a small food street with several breakfast stalls. I took Theodore to eat noodles and drink soy milk. It was probably the first time he'd ever had breakfast. Theodore lived lazily, with an irregular schedule. No one had ever cared whether he lived healthily or not. I noticed his movements pause as he ate the noodles. He lowered his head even further. "Not bad, right?" He gave a perfunctory I drove him to a furniture mall, and then to a maternity store. Theodore asked me 3 times, "Are you pregnant? Whose kid is it?" Each time, he only got one answer from me: "Get lost. I'm just taking you around to experience life." Young Master Theodore. Only then did he relax. After that, I took him to an amusement park, to elementary and middle school campuses. We wore middle school uniforms and read in the library. We walked together under one umbrella on rainy days. I accompanied him to play sports. I taught him how to cook. Eventually, Theodore didn't need me to wake him up anymore. He'd get up obediently on his own. He became curious about what kind of date we'd have each day. He hadn't been to a bar in a long time, nor gone racing, but I didn't want his entire life to revolve around me. I was just a catalyst to help him step out. After all, one day, I would leave. That night's dinner was cooked by Theodore himself. It tasted great. I praised him, and he looked smug, like a cat. "Is there anything you actually like doing?" Theodore peeled shrimp for me, his expression natural, even faintly indulgent. "Being with you. I'll be going to work at my family's company soon. What about you? Do you want to do something you're genuinely interested in? I can support you." Theodore's expression dimmed. "Wait at home for you. Being a house husband sounds pretty good to me. TSK. Be serious. If you cling to me every day, won't you get tired of it? You think I'm clingy?" His face darkened further. This was going nowhere. After coaxing him for a while, Theodore finally softened. "I kind of like singing. Sing one for me. Then, if it's good, Big Sister will invest in you. Big Sister has plenty of money." Theodore laughed and sang a song I'd never heard before. It was so good that even after he finished, I stood there in a daze. "What song was that?" "Something I made up. I'm telling you, you're a genius, Gloria. I like the way you talk. Say more." From his lazy expression, I could tell he hadn't taken it seriously. But I'd been trained by my father since childhood to have terrifying execution power. I pushed him into his room and made him pull out all the songs he'd written, and I started contacting people in the industry to launch Theodore into stardom. The whole world would love him. He would never again be a child no one loved. Chapter 22. I helped Theodore line up countless dinners and meetups in the music and entertainment circles. At first, everyone thought we were just here to play around, to have a meal, make connections. But once they actually worked with Theodore, they started fighting over who got to collaborate with him. He went from casual indifference to taking things seriously. In the end, we chose to partner with Blue Sky Entertainment in a city and invited the renowned Taiwanese lyricist-composer Terry Fong. Terry Fong had stopped writing 7 years ago, but I wanted the best for Theodore. He deserved it. His voice, talent, and natural gift were all worth bringing Terry Fong out of retirement. We stayed in Taiwan for 2 months. We tried everything: persistent visits, waiting in the cold, all the classic tactics. Finally, at Terry Fang's wife's birthday banquet, Theodore performed an original song with guitar. He stunned the entire room, and successfully earned Terry Fang's appreciation. The collaboration was confirmed. Under Blue Sky Entertainment's heavy promotion, the news that Terry Fong had returned to write an album for newcomer Theodore ignited massive anticipation. On the day Theodore debuted, He was instantly crowned with titles like Genius Singer and A Voice Kissed by Angels. Search rankings across all platforms shot straight to #1. But his story didn't end there. He finally had a life of his own. Finally, he could live for himself. On stage, he was the brightest star in the crowd, everyone loved him. After Theodore's birthday performance ended, fans reluctantly left the venue. The stage lights went completely dark. In the nanny van parked in a corner backstage, he held his guitar and played me a new song, You Have to Live. The final lyric was, You have to live. Live to love her. Gloria, I love you, he said with a smile. The mechanical voice in my mind finally sounded again. Congratulations. Host. Conquest of the male supporting role successful. The world is beginning to detach from the storyline. Host. You have gained freedom. What about the world? The world is free as well. Everyone is. This system will now disengage from the world. Host. Good luck. Goodbye. I rushed forward and hugged Theodore. Tightly, so tightly. He laughed and steadied my shoulders. Hey, is this really that exciting? Theodore. Thank you. Seeing my slightly red eyes, he looked a little flustered. Why are you crying? I should have confessed earlier. Sorry, I was just nervous. Gloria, I was afraid you wouldn't like me. No, I said softly. I do like you, but as a friend. Theodore froze. A friend? I looked into his eyes, trying to explain everything, make it sound real, less absurd. He was silent for a long time. Finally, he lowered his head and smiled. Don't be nervous. I believe you. Sean came back from Italy. He said, either you move out from across Theodore's place, or I move in. He just failed a confession yesterday. Don't poke at him. He's a big star now. Emotional stability matters. I'll move. When I was moving, I happened to run into Theodore on his way out for an event. He was heading to France. Wrapped up tightly, he lifted his sunglasses slightly. Gloria, I'm not going to eat you. Is this really necessary? Do you know how many people are lining up to like me? I laughed awkwardly. I'm afraid it'll affect your career. Heh, don't think I don't know Sean's back. Theodore coolly slid his sunglasses back on, his tone sharp, leaving me with an arrogantly cool silhouette. Later, that outfit trended. Fans zoomed in on the photos and said, did our prince cry? Oh God, did his family go bankrupt? Why is he crying so hard? Could it be that he was moved to tears by his own new song? This outfit is insanely expensive, love it. Sticking close. As it turned out, the fans guessed right. Theodore released a new song, the one he had sung only for me that night, You Have to Live. In the video, after finishing the final lyric, his eyes were red. Then he said, this song is for the best girl in the world, my girl. And also, someone else's girl. The comment feed flooded with crying emojis, calling him a pure love king, a simp king, annoyed. Theodore posted on Instagram, don't insult me. The comments exploded instantly. The most liked one told him to go steal the girl back. He replied to only that comment. He's better than me. What kind of devotion did it take for Theodore to step back like that, to admit his rival was better? That question became everyone's mystery. Many people grew curious about the girl in the song, some even dug up that it was me. From there, Julian and Lisa were dragged into speculation. The entire internet erupted in backlash. Sean sat beside me, processing work while sneering coldly. He'd been getting more and more sarcastic lately, so I posted a photo of his working side profile on Instagram. A quiet declaration of ownership. About him. About me. Chapter 23. Thinking back on how Theodore found out about Sean, it probably started on my birthday. If my birthday still held any meaning after my awakening, then the only person left was Sean. He called me and said, Gloria, I bought a ticket for tomorrow. Tomorrow was my birthday. What he meant was obvious, but I'll definitely have to spend it with Theodore. I teased him while rushing to the airport. Why don't you just stay in Italy? There was a long silence on the other end. In the end, he said hoarsely, okay. He hung up, and my heart soured completely. No matter how many times I called back, he wouldn't answer. When I rushed overnight to Italy and arrived at his place, the lights were off. Seeing the darkness, I panicked. Still clinging to hope, I rang the doorbell. I waited a long time. Then Sean appeared behind the door. In the shadows, I couldn't make out his expression, but he suddenly pulled me inside. The kiss was fierce enough to set everything ablaze. The heavy scent of alcohol nearly intoxicated me as well. His kisses were ruthless, like fire, burning downward inch by inch, a desperate, all-consuming entanglement. Sean's strength was overwhelming. He tore my dress, snapped the strap from my shoulder. He let himself ignite completely. The night was like water, dissolving me, melting me into his arms. His two-story villa was in disarray everywhere. In the end, he pressed me into the bedding. Only then did I see how red his eyes were. Gloria, I wait for you every day. I wait for you to come find me. You never do. Sometimes I feel like a puppet you're playing with. The strings are in your hands, and I can't do anything about it. And I was actually afraid to go back home, because you didn't want me to. Sooner or later, I'll go insane, and when that happens, I'll lock you up. That'll finally satisfy you, won't it? His voice was hoarse, clearly suppressing countless emotions. I finally wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him fiercely in return. We spent a birthday with our days and nights completely reversed. Theodore called 23 times. I didn't dare answer a single one. I'd already left a note in his living room. At least he wouldn't worry enough to call the police. I was only afraid that the person in front of me would be hurt even more. Sean gave me roses, far larger and more exquisite than the bouquet Theodore had once carried back to the apartment. Sean gently stroked the petals, a look of deep satisfaction on his face. You'd better only accept flowers from me from now on. Of course, I said, kissing his cheek. He bent down obediently to meet me. Just keep soothing me like this. Soothing him, until he was willing, without resentment. It was probably from that birthday onward that Theodore began, little by little, to notice something was off. But we were good friends, and Theodore never once had the courage to question it outright, until the final confrontation, when the outcome was already obvious. Chapter 24. Theodore's parents finally began to regret their neglect and cruelty toward their younger son, but he had no intention of accepting them back. My own parents, too, had finally learned how to be real parents, loving me, caring for me, instead of one demanding absolute perfection, and the other blaming me for disappointing her husband. Julian returned to being the gentle, courteous boy next door he once was. He threw himself into his work and kept a careful distance from me. When the entire internet turned on him, he stepped forward, calmly admitted his mistakes, and solemnly expressed his regret and apology. Lisa saved up enough money for a plane ticket and left this land to complete the studies she never finished. Before she left, she wrote me a letter. There were tear stains on the paper, a girl's jealousy, resentment, remorse, and eventual release. She explained everything clearly, apologized with utmost sincerity, but did not ask for my forgiveness. She wrote, "I'm sorry. It's something I had to say. None of that really mattered anymore, because I was getting married to Sean." This world had gained another stroke of color, a living soul in my eyes, the person who would always respect my choices, always wait where he was. The best person in the world. I love him very much. On our wedding day, the guests filled the hall. I wore a simple white gown that trailed along the floor. Holding my father's arm, I walked step by step toward my boy. Before the priest, we looked at each other with utter seriousness and vowed never to betray one another. We kissed amid thunderous applause. Julian sat below, not too near, not too far, clapping. He was smiling, and he was hurting, but he would eventually let go. Theodore did not come. He stayed in his own studio and played Mariage d'Amour. He said, wishing her a happy marriage. He said he couldn't come. He couldn't bear to watch her marry someone else. I was exhausted after the long day. I lay on the bed, not even wanting to take off my wedding dress. Sean knelt on one knee beside the bed, lifted me gently, and helped me out of it himself. His expression gradually deepened with desire. Long lashes lowered, his gaze growing heavy and sticky. "I'm really tired." I tried to struggle, but Sean scooped me up and carried me into the bathtub, patiently bathing me himself. Then, very properly, he tucked me into bed. My gaze drifted downward, seeing how much restraint he was showing. I felt a little sorry for him. Sean sat beside me. You'll pay me back tomorrow. I shrank under the blanket like a groundhog protecting itself and nodded repeatedly. He was a bandit. I'd learned that long ago. Rather than pity others, it's better to cherish yourself. Seeing me like that, Sean snorted a laugh. Gloria, isn't there something you want to tell me? He looked down at me. I realized I'd never really explained my absurd actions to him, because all along, he had tolerated me, or indulged me. So I started from the beginning of the story and told him everything, all the way to the end. By the time I finished, even I felt a little low. He reached out and patted my head. I thought he was about to comfort me. Instead, he asked, "So how did it feel, winning over your crush? Was it fun?" Get lost. I cursed, furious. Not long after, I fell asleep. Behind me, Sean held me tightly. He said that for the rest of his life, he would never let me suffer again. This was my boy, who would use his own way to lead me out, or let me walk out on my own. He stood in the light, always ready to reach out his hand to me.